You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show? Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime, anywhere. Download the CBC Listen.
This is CBC News. At 12 o'clock, we're at -9 with cloudy skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. Winnipeg City Councillors will vote today on a budget containing the largest property tax hike in more than 3 decades. As the CBC's Cameron McLean reports, one councillor has already promised to vote against that budget.
The draft 2025 budget has already gone through some changes. Public backlash pushed councillors to scrap a proposed pilot project to raise the threshold for the city's first snowplow. And last week, the Executive Policy Committee added $23 million to demolish the Arlington Bridge and begin designing a replacement. Fort Rouge East Fort Garry councillor Sherry Rowlands announced yesterday she would not vote for the budget. She says the budget lacks crucial details, including a forthcoming report on water and sewer rates. Rowlands resigned as chair of the Property Committee last week. This year's budget raises property taxes by 5.95%, the biggest increase since 1990. The city faces the prospect of needing to find nearly $11 million to cover a deficit from last year after draining its reserve fund. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The head of Winnipeg's mobile overdose prevention site says it did what it could to save lives this weekend. 10 people overdosed within 45 minutes near Main and Logan. The first person needing life-saving help arrived near the Sunshine House RV around 2 Sunday afternoon. Executive Director Levi Foy says paramedics were called when a second person came in, then a third. He says they were run off their feet and just don't have the room to handle so many people that quickly. Foy says a supervised consumption site would be better equipped.
What the impact on a community level of what a supervised consumption site can look like, because within that facility, there will be built-in healthcare providers, and there'll be more kind of supports available for individuals. A, if they experience this type of event, and B, there'll be follow-ups.
Foy says there might have been multiple deaths had they not had people on hand to offer that life-saving treatment. Provincial and territorial premiers held another virtual meeting with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today to talk Team Canada strategy. U.S. tariffs on all Canadian exports are expected to kick in this weekend. Rafi Boudjikanian has more.
You can't invest in healthcare if your economy gets attacked.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford trying to turn the tariff crisis into a political opportunity, launching his re-election campaign in Windsor right across from the U.S.
Who do you trust to take care of the people of Ontario and the businesses and the workers?
But should he get a new mandate, it would be close to a month away, and President Donald Trump's administration warns tariffs will arrive on Saturday. Today, Ford took part in a call with provincial and territorial counterparts and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
We don't know what new tariffs will be imposed, when.
Tiff Macklem is the Bank of Canada's governor.
We have little historical experience with tariff changes of the magnitude that the U.S. is contemplating.
A source with knowledge of the discussion with Canadian officials tells CBC the government is unclear on whether tariffs will be imposed on Saturday or if the U.S. is aiming for April. Rafi Boudjikanian on CBC News, Ottawa.
Meanwhile, the head of the Manitoba Chambers of Commerce hopes Canada won't need a bailout from the U.S. tariffs. Chamber CEO Chuck Davidson says there are a number of things Canada can do rather than focus on a bailout.
This is really an opportunity, in my mind, for us to really take control of our own economies so that we become less reliant and we worry less about what Trump's doing and more about what we can control. So this would be a message in terms of we've got critical minerals, we've got green energy, we've got all this opportunity in a province like Manitoba. How do we take advantage of that?
So far, there's no word on how much money the federal aid package would offer. The provincial government is also promising financial aid. The Bank of Canada has lowered its key interest rate again. It dropped it by 0.25% to 3%. Governor Tiff Macklem says inflation has remained at the target level and economic activity is growing. But that stability is in danger if the U.S. does carry out its tariff threat. Macklem says the bank is preparing.
As we consider our monetary policy response, we will need to carefully assess the downward pressure on inflation from weakness in the economy and weigh that against the upward pressure on inflation from higher input prices and supply chain disruptions.
The bank has lowered its GDP growth projections to 1.8% for 2025 and 2026. And the Union for 7,000 allied health workers is poised to go on strike. The Manitoba Association of Healthcare Professionals voted 96% in favor of going on strike. This comes as the union and the province are in contract talks. Union President Jason Linklater says they've been without a contract since March of 2024. Linklater says his members haven't seen any improvement in pay or working conditions.
What concerns me is that the messaging from government, the ad campaigns and what we hear in the media from government is absolutely not reflective of what we hear on the front line. You certainly would not see a 96% strike mandate if things were going well and improving.
So far, there is no strike deadline. Looking at the afternoon forecast in Winnipeg, mainly cloudy, a high around -4 this afternoon with light wind at times. Brandon, mainly cloudy, a high of -2. Dauphin, you're looking for a high of -2 and mainly cloudy. In Flin Flon, a chance of light snow, a high of -5. Thompson, you could also see light snow, a high around -17 in Thompson. And on the bay in Churchill, a high of -30 with a mix of sun and cloud.
Hello and welcome to Radio Noon for Wednesday, January 29th. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten. I'll be with you for the rest of the week and looking forward to lots of good Radio Noon stories. Coming up on our call-in conversation today, Trump's tariffs are apparently on track, slated to go into effect against Canada on February 1st, and some political leaders are advising shoppers to buy Canadian in response. Are you going to try to buy Canadian? An economist will join us to talk about ways you can help support the country's economy in the face of the tariffs threat, so give us a call after the news, 204-780-0893. And we're going to hear some streeters of Manitobans and what they think about buying Canadian. But first up, staff at Riding Mountain National Park have lost the battle against zebra mussels in Clear Lake. The battle between park staff and zebra mussels in Clear Lake has raged for well over a year now, and yesterday park staff admitted defeat. In an update on its website, Riding Mountain National Park said after hearing input and advice from Indigenous advisors, the province, and leading scientific experts, it has determined that eradicating zebra mussels is not feasible. This past fall, park staff found hundreds of zebra mussels on the east end of the lake, and that's far away from Boat Cove, where they originally hoped to contain the zebra mussels. Aaron McKay is Anishinaabe from Rolling River First Nation. His people have lived around Clear Lake for generations.
It feels like I'm losing a piece of myself. I also feel like there's a family member who was diagnosed with some incurable illness, and we just have to watch them slowly pass away. My concern now goes to how can we prevent that spread of zebra mussels to the other water bodies.
The park says there are no immediate concerns about the implications for water treatment infrastructure. It says its focus now is on keeping zebra mussels from spreading into other bodies of water. It also means the park plans to allow boats back on the lake this summer under what it calls a one boat, one lake approach, which basically means if you use your boat on one body of water, you don't use it on another. Jackson Potter owns the Outpost campground community near Clear Lake, and CBC's Marcy Marcusa asked him how he's feeling now that zebra mussels are here to stay.
Certainly the writing's been on the wall for a little bit here around the zebra mussels being in the lake. And it is pretty disappointing, tough to deal with, but I think it is some good news that they are going to be allowing boats back on the water. It's an important part for a lot of people that are up there and a lot of community members. And so at least having that back, and yes, I think the one boat, one lake policy does balance a little bit the risk and still making sure that people can enjoy the water, but certainly there'll be lots of work ahead on mitigating some of the impacts there.
What do you foresee as some of the impacts could be, whether it's overall because there's zebra mussels or whether it's because of one boat, one lake? How might that affect people?
It's pretty tough to predict the full impact of what that might be. I think one boat, one lake, that was a policy that we had in 2023, and we still saw lots of people signing up for that. Lots of people who were happy to commit to Clear Lake for the year. And so I think we'll still see that coming back. And people, cottage owners, residents, people that are, a pretty integral part of the community. I think that's a big part of what they like about Clear Lake, being able to enjoy the full experience, and it'll be good to be able to reassure them that that'll continue.
How have zebra mussels already impacted your business, Jackson, and others in the area that you're hearing about?
I think it's certainly created a lot of uncertainty, and it's difficult for people to want to commit to the area or invest in the area when there's a lot of uncertainty around what the future might look like. And so I think it's really about making sure that people can see what the long-term plans are for managing the zebra mussels, what it might mean for them, and providing that sense of security in people to invest in the area, buy cottages or buy spots to or visit and stay, and buy businesses and invest in the community there. So I think just the level of uncertainty has certainly been felt among all business owners and a lot of the cottage residents as well, and local residents. So yeah, I think if we can get back to knowing what the long-term plan is and what we can expect and how we can work together on this, that'll certainly help things.
It's interesting thinking about August, when there was still this hope when that curtain was going in. It was August 1st and hoping something might work there. But yet people then were already skeptical. I'm wondering what the overall sort of feeling is around how this all unfolded.
I mean, it's difficult to say. I know there was a lot of work and a lot of effort put into trying to mitigate this. It is something that, as far as I'm aware, has never been done before. Usually once zebra mussels are discovered, it's already too late. And so I think it was a pretty difficult undertaking, and they knew that, but felt it was worth it to try anyway. And I'm glad that there was that commitment to trying their best. But yeah, I think it was just a really difficult undertaking. So I'm not too sure what they could have done differently.
You were talking about wanting to hear from plans moving forward this summer. I mean, obviously, around Lake Winnipeg, they literally go out in some places and have to scrape these off the beach. You haven't really seen that at Clear Lake. What questions do you have about how things are going to be managed moving forward?
I mean, lots of questions. What can we expect some of those management strategies to look like? Will there be other restrictions put in place, or what can we expect in the long term? And I don't know that those questions have answers at the moment, but I am hoping that business owners, community members, residents can be brought into some of those conversations earlier on, and I know they are asking for, or they're giving people an opportunity to share input and provide feedback and thoughts for the Winter Adventure Weekend coming up there. So I think as long as those conversations continue to happen, that'll help to answer some of those questions.
Jackson Potter owns the Outpost Campground community near Clear Lake. He was speaking with CBC's Marcy Marcusa this morning.
Manitoba is the kind of place that draws you in. Every day it's growing, it's changing. Just when you think you've got it figured out, though, there's something new to understand. I'm Marcy Marcusa, host of the CBC Daily Podcast. This is Manitoba. I've covered the news from the rail line in Churchill to the border in Emerson, and it's talking about the local stories that help us understand this place. That's what This is Manitoba is all about. Find it on CBC Listen or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
You are listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM. I'm Lori Hugh-Stratton. Coming up after the 12:30 news, our call-in. We want to hear from you about what you think now that the plan to slap Canada with damaging tariffs on Saturday is still on the books. That's a quote from White House spokesman. And are you taking steps to buy Canadian? We want to hear your thoughts on that. Or if you're already buying Canadian, what are you buying? And give us some tips. Call us 204-780-0893. Yeah, it's quite a conundrum. But, I mean, buying Canadian is always kind of a good thing, shop local and all that. So we want to hear from you. Give us a call. Some weather for you today in Winnipeg. Sunny out there now, but it's supposed to be mainly cloudy with the winds out of the south at 20 and highs of -4 in Winnipeg and down to -8 tonight. And on tomorrow, let's see, highs of -2. It's warming up again. And on Friday, we can see, it's going to be -15. Looking at Brandon and Dauphin today, mainly cloudy, highs of -2. And on Thursday, highs of -3, -15 on tomorrow night. And some temperatures for you around the province. In Brandon, it's -12 with light snow. Churchill, -32. Dauphin, -3. Gimli, -13. In the Paw, it's -6. Thompson is -21. And in Winnipeg, it's sunny right now and -9. It's just coming up to 16 minutes after 12 o'clock. U.S. President Donald Trump says the White House is on track to impose a 25% tariff on Canadian goods starting February 1st. And of course, that's what we want you to call in about after the 12:30 news. And it has politicians across the country encouraging Canadians to buy Canadian products as a countermeasure. Want to know if you're going to be doing that. And just to kind of warm you up for the whole discussion, we sent CBC's Jim Agapito out on kind of a windy morning to ask Winnipeggers how their spending plans might change in the face of Trump tariffs.
Ruth Moore. Now, Ruth, are you currently following the tariff dispute between Canada and the United States?
Yes.
How does it make you feel?
Threatened. As long as the premiers are not 100%, and Alberta isn't, I'm not sure what the alternative is going to be to tariffs on both sides. And it doesn't matter which way you look at it, it's not going to be good for them. It's not going to be good for us.
Robert Shaw.
Now, Robert, are you currently following the tariff dispute between Canada and the United States?
I'm closely following that, yes.
And why are you closely following it?
It's been a groundswell of interest in, unfortunately, the newly elected president in the States to the south. And unfortunately, with the change in government here and the withdrawal of the current prime minister, I'm concerned that prices are going to be increased. It's going to create some tariff wars between two really what's been longstanding countries that have supported and endorsed each other.
Free. Debre.
Are you following the current potential tariff war that will go on between Canada and the United States?
A little bit, kind of.
And how does that make you feel?
I don't really care. I think we'll be okay. The tariffs are probably a negotiation strategy from Trump. So, I don't know. I think that's just his strategy. I don't think maybe they will put the tariffs on, but the tariffs aren't really the point. It's more just a negotiation strategy, I think.
Joan Green. I'm not impressed. I mean, it's ridiculous. I have all kinds of opinions about Trump, but none of them will be airable.
Has that made you alter the way that you buy products?
Oh, yes. I don't buy anything from the States. If there's any alternative at all, I don't buy anything from the States.
How long did you start doing this?
About 2 weeks ago. There's things that you can't get in grocery stores from Canada, like grapes, for instance. But I've been buying grapes from, I think, Peru, not California. And I've quit drinking orange juice. And, like that kind of thing.
I generally am careful about where and what I shop. Like in the neighborhood, the Exchange, for example, there's a lot of shops that are local. I think it's important to support that always. I think I will be careful about where I shop and what I purchase. I'm focused on Canadian products right now. I think it's important that people really think about that carefully. And there are products, of course, that come from the States. Awesome. Buy them if that's what you love, but also be mindful about shopping Canadian if you can.
Now, you did mention that it's causing some debate between you and maybe friends, family. What is the conversation like? What is that like?
The conversation is that she won't stop talking about it, and there's really nothing we can do about Trump being president of the United States. It's a done deal. We didn't have any control over it before it happened. We still don't. We do, however, have some control over who we vote in this country.
I think the government will change to Pierre Poilievre, and then I think he'll make things work out.
Do you think buying Canadian will help boost the economy?
It has to. I can't see how it doesn't.
Obviously, if you're buying Canadian-made products, it's going to help, the industries.
It could potentially. If nothing else, it may rethink people's shopping habits, which is always a good thing, being more mindful about prices and sources for the products that they're buying.
Those were some thoughtful opinions gathered by the CUC's Jim Agapito. He was asking Manitobans if they'll buy Canadian in response to the U.S. tariffs. And coming up on our call-in conversation, we want to hear your opinion or what you're doing. Are you willing to forego your American products in favor of supporting Canadian businesses? We want to hear from you. You can call our live line at 204-780-0893, or you can text us as well at 204-588-7355, and let us know if you are buying Canadian or going to buy Canadian and what you think of the tariffs and what can be done. Some people, the woman on the tape was saying, you can't, it's a done deal. We just have to work around it. And I must say, I don't know if you're watching on our YouTube channel, because that was one windy day. People's hair was blowing like straight backwards, but their thoughts were very clear. So do give us a call after the 12:30 news, 204-780-0893, and tell us what you think. You're listening to Radio Noon. It's just coming up to 22 minutes after 12. And here's something for you to consider. What app is so useful you can't believe it's free? That's a question a Reddit user put to the community on the platform just over a year ago. And the CBC's Anjula Selvarajah says the answers in that thread are gold. So she took the question to tech enthusiasts across the country. And here's what she found on Reddit and beyond.
There are more than 1.5 million apps in the App Store or Google Play, according to analytics firm Statista.
If you want to check snow conditions on the mountain, there's an app for that. If you want to check how many calories are in your lunch, there's an app for that.
That's an iPhone commercial from 2009 featuring the now familiar phrase coined and trademarked by Apple. But just when you think you have all the apps you need, you come across yet another list with good suggestions. In this case, it's a long and amusing Reddit thread replying to the question, what app is so useful you can't believe it's free? It's drawn more than 4,000 responses. Like the Redditor who likes the app MediSafe, a pill reminder and medication manager. Another mentions Be My Eyes. It's a platform that connects visually impaired people with a community of volunteers who can provide them with live visual assistance over video. Ziad Saeed says his favorite is an app called Blossom Social. Saeed is the executive director of Tech Yukon, a Whitehorse-based nonprofit working on growing Yukon's tech sector.
Blossom is this investors app, and it connects you to this community of people who are sort of new to the realm of investing, but also people who are experts in it as well. People also talk about, why they got into investing, their life stories, and it's just this really great community that you can engage with.
Blossom Social is by a Vancouver-based startup, which describes the app as a social network for investing. It's free to download, but offers advanced features with a paid subscription. A popular suggestion on the Reddit thread is Tunity. This is how it works. If you're in a waiting room or a pub with a muted TV and you want to listen, you scan the screen with your phone and Tunity finds and gives you the audio. Timina Chowdhury has a favorite, WhatsApp, the calling and messaging platform.
So it's a tool that I can't live without it. My husband travels a lot. So, WhatsApp is a thing that we keep doing the video calls and keep connecting with us.
Chowdhury is the founder of Canada Startup Association, a nonprofit organization based in Mississauga, Ontario, that helps immigrant entrepreneurs and innovators from underserved communities. She says she's also a big fan of WhatsApp Business, which includes features such as building a product catalog and accepting customer payments.
So it's like my personal assistant that's always on standby. For someone like me, managing multiple businesses, working with a startup, other entities, and leading 100% remote team in 4 different time zones.
Rick Spence is the host of the Startup Canada podcast. It's by an Ottawa-based nonprofit that aims to connect Canadian entrepreneurs with the tools, resources, and the community they need. Spence's recommendation is an app he uses to play around with the many photos he takes on his digital camera.
One of my favorite things is this tiny little app called Comica. So it's comic with an A on the end. And what it does is it instantly turns your photos into a piece of art. And it could be a black and white sketch. It could be some abstract expressionist thing. It's free. There's an ad at the end, which you can just skip and go back to whatever else you're doing. But it's a wonderful little thing that brings me a lot of joy.
2 of my family's favorites are Anki and Yuka. We use the free versions. Anki is an app you use to build flashcards for studying. Yuka helps shoppers assess the food and cosmetics they buy in stores. You scan a product's barcode with the app, and Yuka rates how healthy it is to eat. But even with all this app candy out there, Ziad Saeed of Tech Yukon preaches caution.
We've been doing a lot of events on cybersecurity. And I have to say, it's pretty scary at times, because with all this information that we give apps and in social media, and it is a bit scary having your data out there and what people can do with it. So I try and be very cautious as much as I can.
So keep the ones you use and delete the rest. And here's one last recommendation for fans of radio. Radio Garden. It's a free app that shows a rotating globe with more than 25,000 green dots, each representing a radio station. Click on a dot and listen to a live radio broadcast from somewhere in the world. Yes, there's even an app for that. For CBC Radio, I'm Manjula Salvaraja.
Here's Bobby Dove with Gas Station Blues.
How did you steal my heart away?
That's Bobby Dove with Gas Station Blues, and you can check them out tomorrow night at the Times Changed High and Lonesome Club in Winnipeg. That's a way to perk up Radio Noon. And coming up after the 12:30 news, with the plans to slap Canada with damaging tariffs still on the books, they say, we want to know if you're taking steps to buy Canadian, and we want to hear your thoughts on that. Or if you're already buying Canadian, maybe you've got some tips for the rest of us. Give us a call, 204-780-0893. Buy Canadian or not, after the news, which is next.
This is CBC News. At 12:30, we're -7 with mainly cloudy skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. Winnipeg City Councillors will vote today on a budget containing the largest property tax hike in more than 3 decades, and the draft 2025 budget has already gone through some changes. Public backlash pushed councillors to scrap a proposed pilot project to raise the threshold for the city's first snow plow. And last week, the Executive Policy Committee added $23 million to demolish the Arlington Bridge and begin designing a replacement. Also, this year's budget raises property taxes by nearly 6%, the biggest increase since 1990. The city faces the prospect of needing to find nearly $11 million to cover a deficit from last year after draining its reserve fund. It's being called a catastrophic situation, never before seen in Winnipeg. 10 people in Winnipeg's North Main area overdosed within 45 minutes on Sunday. Harm reduction and emergency crews were run off their feet starting around 2 that afternoon. Levi Foy is the executive director of Sunshine House, which runs the mobile overdose prevention site. He says crews were attending to the first person who overdosed at their site when a second person showed up.
On that second call, we had they had arrived, and by the time they had arrived, that individual had come to, but then another person had experienced the same event, and then it was just a cascade from there.
Foy says the drug in question appears to be brown down. A drug alert has been warning people of that toxic drug. In international news, a confirmation hearing is underway for U.S. President Donald Trump's controversial pick for Health and Human Services Secretary. Robert Kennedy Jr. has long cast doubt on the safety and benefits of vaccines. Those previous comments prompted a combative grilling from senators today.
I support the measles vaccine. I support the polio vaccine. I will do nothing as HHS Secretary that makes it difficult or discourages people from taking either of those
Anybody
vaccines.
who believes that ought to look at the measles book you wrote saying parents have been misled into believing that measles is a deadly disease.
If confirmed, RFK Jr. would oversee dozens of U.S. agencies. That list includes the Food and Drug Administration, the Centers for Disease Control, and the National Institute for Health. And Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly is scheduled to meet with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Washington today. Joly says she believes diplomacy can still head off Donald Trump's plan to impose 25% tariffs on Canadian goods. She's been meeting with members of Congress and state governors making Canada's case. And that's your CBC News from Winnipeg.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Back soon.
All right. You're listening to Radio Noon. It is 27 minutes before 1 o'clock. I'm Laurie Hoogstraat, and I'll be with you the rest of this week. Well, yesterday... Oh, no, wait. Riley's not here today? You know what? I'm sorry about that. You'll be even sorrier, because that means I'm going to do the weather, and I'm a skilled professional at the weather. No, Riley's a skilled professional, but I will give it my best shot. In Winnipeg today, mainly cloudy, winds south at 20 and highs of -4. And tonight, clearing near midnight, the winds still south at 20, but they're going to get lighter and lows of -8. And taking a look at Brandon and Dauphin, they're cloudy as well, highs of -2. It was snowing lightly there a little while ago, but I think that might have stopped. And tonight, a few clouds and down to -10. In Gimli today, let's take a look at Gimli. Highs of -5, and it's getting cloudy for this afternoon. Kind of breezy, wind south at 20. And tonight it's going to be clear and lows of -8. In the Paw today, they're looking for a high of -3. Also cloudy skies and a chance of light snow. And tonight down to -13 and getting a little bit breezy out of the north. Thompson is looking for a mix of sun and cloud, chance of light snow. And the winds aren't too bad. They're 15 kilometers an hour hour with a high of minus 17 this afternoon. Tonight, down to minus 31. That's a little on the chilly side. And in Churchill today, it's very cold in Churchill. It's already minus 32, and that's the high today. And tomorrow, mix of sun and cloud in Churchill with the winds out of the northwest 30. Highs of minus 25, and that is very, very cold. And some temperatures for you at this hour. In Brandon, minus 12, Churchill, minus 32, Gimli, minus 13, Dauphin, minus 3, The Paws, minus 6, Thompson is minus 21, and in Winnipeg, it's minus 7, but we're hoping for a high of minus 4. There. Wasn't that some good weather for you? Riley's been training me up. He'd be proud of me, I'm sure. It is 25 minutes before 1 o'clock. Yesterday, the White House said the plan to impose punishing tariffs on Canada this Saturday is still in play. Political leaders from Prime Minister Trudeau to Ontario Premier Doug Ford are urging that buying made-in-Canada product could help the country's economy push back against Canadian tariffs. So how are you responding to that call to action? Do you want to try to buy more Canadian products but don't know where to start? Or are you already trying to buy Canadian as much as possible? If not, what's holding you back? Give us a call, 204-780-0893, or you can text us at 204-588-7355. Are you concerned about prices, availability, don't know what's Canadian and what isn't? Well, according to some economists, choosing Canadian goods is often easier said than done, so you could be finding a few problems there. And for his perspective, we've reached Viet Vu to jumpstart the conversation. He is the manager of economic research at the DAIS at Toronto Metropolitan University. He joins us from Toronto. Hello.
Good afternoon.
So tell me, are people in this country eager to embrace the whole buying Canadian thing? And what is it that makes the idea attractive?
I mean, the whole past couple of weeks since Donald Trump's sort of inauguration and his strings of announcements about silly ideas of, turning Canada into the 51st state to this imposed tariff, I think has been a whole mess, right? But if there's any silver lining through this whole fiasco, is that Canadians, I do think, for the first time in a while, feel this sense of nationalism, feel the sense that, hey, we're actually Canadians. We're not just a country that's slightly north of the States. We're not just American light. And so that's really wonderful. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, there is this real threat. And a lot of our political leaders have been showing up this domestic support, particularly because this tariff, I don't think is economics, because it makes zero economic sense. And so I do think a lot of our political leaders have been pushing this idea of buying Canadian, not really as an actual economic strategy, but really to build this united front, to sort of present Canadian leadership, to present Canadian unity, to be able to politically push back on some of President Trump's policies here.
Well, I want to ask you some more about the economics of the whole thing, but we have people on the line already, so maybe we'll get some opinions to get this conversation on a big roll. We have Jude on the line. Hi, Jude.
Yeah, hi.
Aren't you glad I didn't say, "Hey, Jude"? I bet you heard that before. Yeah.
That was much appreciated, but feel free to go on the air and say that.
Okay. So tell me what you're thinking about.
I'm just thinking about we're seeing all the talk about the tariffs coming in from the U.S. and about the Canadian response over here, the responding kind, presumably starting from this Saturday. What do we expect? I know the directive to the public is try buying locally and prepare for pain. What should we expect, and how long should we expect this for?
We'll get Viet to comment on that.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jude, for joining. It's an excellent question, right? And the key part is we actually have no idea. Now, we do have some example that has happened in the world to look forward to. And the most recent that I'm thinking of is actually Brexit. Is that the day that the UK officially left the EU and all of its common market, you saw chaos right at the border between UK and France as sort of trucks trying to clear customs because all of these new rules came into place and no one knew how to handle it. If in 3 days' time that 25 tariff gets instituted, I'm expecting similar scenes on that long stretch of land border between US and Canada here, of a lot of trucks, a lot of customs officers and immigration officials not knowing what's happening. As to how long this thing is going to be in place for, that's a big question. Some are saying, right, that this tariff is Donald Trump's tactic to renegotiate UNCMA, the trade agreement that was struck under his first administration. That's up for renewal in 2026. But the moment he puts this tariff on, that suspends all of this trade agreements. So it does depend on all of these political footballing that is happening right now.
I hope that helps you, Jude, to come to your decision. And we have Nader on the line as well. And let's see what he has to say. Hi, Nader.
Hello.
Hi, are you buying Canadian?
Yes, I just wanted to say that I have been following the news on the tariffs, and I came to Canada like 1 year ago. I'm a temporary worker here, and I believe that immigrants, like from the immigrant community and also Canadians, we should support this country, even if the tariffs come, although I don't think they will come. But even if they come, I think we should all support it by buying Canadian.
And why don't you think they will come?
Because it's like if Donald Trump really goes through with this tariff, it's like shooting the country in the knee itself. So I don't really think that. I think he's smarter than that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a negotiation tactic. That's what I believe.
Yes, I can see Viet nodding about that. Thank you very much for your call, Nader. Good to hear your views.
All right, thank you.
And what do you think about...
Nader, no, thank you for that. Just quickly adding on to you, right? You're exactly right within the sense that this tariff doesn't make any economic sense because the U.S. economy benefits as much as Canada does by trading with us. And so by blowing up that whole thing, it will hurt the Americans as well. And just certainly wanted to thank you being a temporary worker and sort of coming to Canada and contributing to the economy. It cannot be an easy thing to do. And I do think that's really great that this sense of belongings of so many people feeling in Canada. And those are what our political leaders need right now. Because again, any response that we have against these tariffs will end up hurting us ourselves in the short run. But we cannot lose perspective this long run fight between US and Canada relations that is at stake. And so thank you for calling in.
Yes, thank you, Nader. I'm going to throw that out to our listeners. Even if buying Canadian is more of a unanimity tactic rather than anything that's economically going to make too much difference, are you doing that? Are you supporting that kind of solidarity, that sense of Canadianness and trying to do your part? And if you are, give us a call, 204-780-0893. Or maybe that's just your general bent is to buy Canadian, and you can give us some tips on what you're buying and where you find it. Now, Viet, on that note, do you think when we talk about buying Canadian, how achievable is that strategy for the average customer? Does it depend what it is you're looking to buy, or across the board is it possible?
I mean, I think it's much easier to buy Canadian brands. But when the question becomes a wholly Canadian sort of made goods, the question becomes really, really complicated. And my favorite example these days is to ask people to consider something as simple as a Filet-O-Fish sort of sandwich in a McDonald's. The buns, could be baked in Canada, which is great, but the eggs, it might actually come from a poultry farm in the States. And importantly, the fish that they make the patty with, that's Alaskan pollock, which, as the name suggests, is caught in Alaska. And so even something as simple as a sandwich that seems to be all sourced from local ingredients, let's say, Manitoban wheat that is used to make these buns, cannot entirely be Canadian. And then once you realize the fact that, hey, farmers, the people that grow all of these wonderful produce across Canada also use heavy equipment, things like tractors, and you can't guarantee that every single component of that was in fact made in Canada. And so even though there are many wonderful Canadian brands, a lot of them depend on this free trade between US and Canada to ensure that every single little cogs in their machine and their production stays intact.
Yeah. We've just had a text from Ken. He messaged us to say, I will definitely be buying Canadian whenever possible. I don't know whether it will have an impact or not, but it can't hurt. What do you think about that, Viet? I guess that's true.
I mean, again, it's that expression of supporting Canadian producers that's really great to see, right? I do think that sense of unity, that sense of coming together as a country, even if it doesn't have an economic impact, It will, because it sends a political message. And economic policies are often driven as much by politics as sort of economic trends. And so ensuring you're actually openly supporting Canadian products, I don't think can't hurt.
Well, I guess
Thank you, Ken.
the political leaders are somewhat hogtied because, who's going to come out and say, no, buy American, support the tariffs? It's pretty unlikely. So this gives Canadians a chance to look at the good side, their good parts of their character as Canadians.
100%.
Yeah. So how far could this tactic go as an actual economic effect? Is there any segment where it could make a difference?
I mean, the reality is that Donald Trump, as far as a decision on whether he's going to do a tariff or not, in 3 days' time now, I think we're all sort of waiting with bated breath, it likely won't have an impact on his decision, because we saw that play out just last weekend, where he threatened this massive tariff against Colombia over an acceptance of a deportation flight. And so Donald Trump really uses tariff as a combative tactic, as a political tool. And so whether he implements it, I don't think we have much impact on that. But go for it.
No, go ahead. But
but an interesting thing happens if that tariff does go ahead, which is that producers and suppliers, they're super price sensitive, and goods that are coming from the States will also become more expensive because of our own response to put tariffs on American goods as well. And when that happens, you might realize that in the medium run, they start adjusting, they start exploring new suppliers, which might be local. And so it's not an ideal world I'm painting here, but this perverse world where tariff continues to be there might also become a world where it is in fact easier to buy Canadian-made goods, because that's the best alternative that we have.
Right. We have Ed on the line. Let's hear what Ed has to say on this topic. Hi, Ed.
Yes, I was just thinking about the leadership of the Liberal Party. I think that Mark Carney has the expertise, financial expertise, to guide us through this mess that we're going to be in.
Mm-hmm.
I came to the conclusion that Polyev his expertise is about grade 3, page 2 when it comes to financing. He can't help us.
And are you buying Canadian? Are you falling in with this idea of supporting Canada? Yeah?
Definitely.
And do you do that as a matter of course, or are you changing your tactics to support Canada?
Well, since all this stuff was being mauled around, I started a while ago ignoring a lot of American stuff as much as I can.
Well, thank you very much for your call, Ed, and we'll see what steps the leaders and leadership candidates will take on this. Now, Viet, so if it's largely political and doesn't have a ton of economic impact, do you think people might say, well, it's not worth buying Canadian and just keep on the way they're going?
I don't think so, right? Because this is about politics, and you cannot fight this terrible political decision by economic policy. You have to fight politics with politics. And so actually creating this support, a show of support for our political leaders to be able to respond, that shows that, hey, Canadians are united here, so that it's going to hurt Donald Trump politically, saying that you can't bully us around that easily. Not just our political leaders, but our public as well. That shows something. And that really does, at least in the long run, puts us on the same negotiating footing with the Americans, which is what we need right now.
Yeah. And before I let you go, I want to hark back to you talked about the chaos that Brexit wreaked when Britain left that. So if there's all this schmozzle at the border, who's going to suffer the most? The people from the U.S., the trucks coming into Canada, or the trucks trying to leave Canada?
Both is the quite direct answers to that. Because again, we're expecting that the Canadian government, if the tariff goes ahead on Saturday, to immediately impose another set of tariffs on American goods entering Canada as well. And so the chaos, number one, will be honestly felt by those truck drivers firsthand that are having to drive all of these products and goods and parts across the border, sometimes multiple times a day. And so I feel for those truck drivers. Second, it's honestly the border agents, the custom agents, because they will be receiving that new document of all of these new rules that they need to implement and interpret. And many of them will probably have little clue as to how to apply these tariffs or how to even handle the situation. And then I expect a couple of days later to have people, regular consumers on both sides of the border, waiting for their goods to be delivered. Factory owners waiting for that crucial part that they need. So let's say manufacture that bus in Manitoba. All of those will be felt. There's no one that's not going to be hurt through this tariff.
Well, and it's the poor people at the border, as you say, because they're also supposed to be stopping all the, mountains of fentanyl that's coming in, all the illegal immigrants that are coming in, and now they're going to have actual trucks piling up on the border, and those will be ultra real. But we have James on the line. Let's hear what James has to say. Hi, James.
Hi, how you doing?
Very well. How are you?
I'm good.
What are your thoughts?
I was thinking if we want to boycott American-made products, then the easy way to do it would be to have all products that are American with a little flag on them somewhere, so that we could identify them quickly without reading the rest of the fine print, and right away if it was American or not.
Well, that's a thought. What do you think about that, Viet?
I mean, we've actually had this exact conversation before, in the sense that a couple of years ago, I think perhaps more than a decade ago, we used to have these like made in Canada stickers, right? That used to being stamped on let's say maple syrup, those products that is in fact Canadian. Now, I do think though, as an economist, probably we need more clarity at this point than more complexity. And so I do think on the first go, on Saturday, if it goes ahead, the set of very clear indication that the federal government has given out on we're going to impose tariff is a good start. And then as the tariff conversation evolves, we can talk about those sort of other alternative policies. The moment an American-made good enter our country, it has this labeling implications. It has this labeling sort of regulations put in place. But I do think immediately on Saturday, as straightforward, as simple a response as possible is going to be most effective, because we need less chaos right now, not more.
Thanks very much for that call. And as you mentioned, Viet, when you were talking earlier about the fish sandwich, where so many things can be from so many different products from different countries and so on. I mean, if you hark way back to apartheid in South Africa, with the people just did not buy South African wine and products. But of course, that's pretty plain. That's one thing in a bottle. And I guess it's tougher for consumers now to pick and choose.
100%, right? A really important example that I often talk about is think about oil. Manitoba, Alberta, Saskatchewan produce a lot of oil, but we don't really have refineries to actually refine that oil into gasoline that fills our cars. We actually have to bring it down to the States in order to refine that crude oil, which is then actually brought back up to Canada. And so do you stop sort of filling up gas on your car because that oil was refined in the US? It becomes this really complicated thing, which is why this act is really silly, right? Canada and the US has been partners for decades, centuries even, since the founding of both of our countries. And this just threatened all of those goodwills that have been built over decades of negotiations and collaboration.
Well, you've given us so much to talk about and provide a lot of clarification. Thank you very much for being with us today.
No, thanks for having me.
Bye-bye. That's Viet Vu. He is the manager of economic research at the DAIS at the Toronto Metropolitan University. We couldn't resist.
Mama, let me be. Don't come hanging around my
Yes, we couldn't resist. That's American Woman by Canadian Winnipeg band. Guess Who, providing a little editorializing for us. You're listening to Radio News. Faith Fundell has joined me in studio. Good afternoon, Faith.
Good afternoon, Lori. Up to speed.
Yes?
The team
Yes?
is back on location at the University of Manitoba today.
Oh.
And we're going to hear from a whole bunch of different students and professors. We'll hear and get reaction about the story of the day, the Trump, U.S. President Donald Trump, and the expected tariffs that will come into effect, that may or may not come into effect.
May or may not. Still on the books, they say.
So we'll hear a local reaction to that story. We'll hear about fun new research as well. And when you walk into a concert hall, Lori, how high is it on the list of possibilities of you expecting to see a hockey game on the stage?
Really low. That's why I go. I mean, I didn't say that. Yeah.
So we're going to head inside the Dace Hotel concert hall where a bit of a hockey game, well, you'll see hockey on stage and musicians too. I know I'm teasing because I'm trying to get people to envision this. So stay tuned for that because we'll hear more about why hockey is on stage inside a concert hall.
Digging in the corners, playing the man.
Yep.
Giving 110%.
We'll skate around. I'm not good at hockey things.
You just haven't been around here long enough. Yep. Okay, well, that sounds very, very interesting.
And if you're at the University of Manitoba, we'll be in the Umsu Fireside Lounge just across from the bookstore.
Okay. Thank you very much, Faith.
Thank you.
That's Up to Speed host Faith Fundell. They and the other people in the team will be at U of M this afternoon. You can hear the show from 3 to 6. Well, that was a pretty exciting show. Lots of opinions. Nice to talk to everybody. And I want to say thank you to Technical Director Marshall Hodgins, Director Sierra Sanders, Producer Wendy Parker, and YouTube producer Kevin Nipatebo. I'll be back with you again tomorrow for another exciting adventure on Radio News. Have a good day. Bye.